Hey there, guys. Music fan here. How you guys doing? Forgive me for the bright background in behind me. It's my curtain, which the light is coming through anyway. Yeah, we're gonna go through a really quick discussion about the recent Radiohead album, "A Moon-Shaped Pool," was released on the 8th of May last month, and we're gonna go in a very short discussion about it. Um, yeah, so like a little bit of a quick background. It's been a while since the last Radiohead album. The last one was 2011, I think. I think it was that year's "The King of Limbs," and I have to say I wasn't really that familiar with that album. The only one I heard probably was "Lotus Flower," which I thought sounded really cool, and the music video was also nice as well with Tom dancing. But other than that, it was an album that kind of flew past by me in that year, and I became not so much disinterested, but very disengaged with Radiohead. At least until the release of "Burn the Witch." Of course, I went on a review of that song. You can check it out in the description box below for my fuller commentary of that song. But in summation, I thought that that song really presented to me, like, reignited that interest in Radiohead for me. And like, I mean, it's very simple song structure, but at the same time, it also takes a huge, ginormous musical risk with that particular song. I mean, what with Tom York's very ghostly phantom vocals in the background, not the background, right in the forefront of the song, and Johnny Greenwood's very ominous orchestration with the strings sections here. And I thought "Daydreaming," which was the next thing they released prior to the album, I thought was really cool. I mean, it was the very I thought it very fitted into the the very standard, in a good way, standard Radiohead song that had its melancholy, its very ominous tone to it. Of course, Tom's vocals is very mournful, very sad, and those very ominous vocal distortions at the end of the song, which creates a very unsettling feel. So, on the one hand, I kind of got what I was expecting with this album, and also what I wasn't expecting with this album. And now, if you allow me to explain, I got what I was expecting with this album initially, which was at first feeling underwhelmed at first with this album, because none of the songs really took that much of a risk, or that much of a they are still song structured here, but they didn't have that catchy baroque pop quality that "Burn the Witch" had, which I was hoping to get with this album. But instead, you have a lot more softer, more slightly ambient in tone, also very almost avant-garde esque in a way with this album. So you have some folk numbers here. Like, a lot of this is very soft and quiet, and meant more for introspection than anything else. So, on the one hand, I was disappointed but yet unsurprised at the same time too, which is the second thing, which I wasn't surprised because I've been accepting of the fact that Radiohead um, are riding their own wave in the music world. They're not a band that wants to please fans. They're not a band that wants to go for pop appeal necessarily, or if they do, they want to go about it in a very unconventional way. In other words, I've kind of thrown away the notion that I'm hoping for a return to the rock orientated Radiohead, because they've clearly left that boat way behind in the 90s, and have just kind of moved on since then. I think In Rainbows kind of brought that back a little bit, and so did Hail to the Thief, but they haven't been doing much of that ever since then. And I've expected it. I expected from this album to sound the way it does. Of course, there are tracks here that do a little bit of that rock quality. I think of tracks like "Identikit," is one particular track. Another track also has to be songs like Dex Dark and Desert Island Disc, which are probably the most happier sounding songs off this album. Of course, they both seem to have a very piano textured quality to them, especially with a song like Dex Dark, as well as the song Desert Island Disc, which seems to have a more folkish quality to this song. At first, I really didn't get any of the lyrics, the songwriting of this album until I caught the review of ARTV of this particular album, and he brought to the attention that the lyrical writing was inspired by Tom York's separation from his wife of 23 or 25 years, his separation from his wife for that long. And when I learned that particular piece of information, it really light bulb over my head, and I finally understood. Oh, okay, now I see what this is about. And that put a little bit more perspective and context with where most of this entire album being very personal in nature. I mean, Daydreaming is one of those songs that lyrically has a very super personal nature, attributed to Tom's separation, I think, from his wife, as well as tracks like Present Tense, Distance is a Weapon, and the very classic fan favorite track, True Love Waits, which I originally heard years ago as an acoustic piece, but now I hear it now, and it's just so very emotional. And so, of course, I'll go in more detail in a track by track review, but it's probably, I find it hard pressed to say that it's my favorite song off the album. For me personally, like True Love Waits. Could also be Burn the Witch. I think that happens to be a favorite of mine as well. Least favorite, I would think, maybe probably Tinker Tailor Soldier blah 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 blah. I can't say the whole thing, it's a mouthful. But I think that song is where I kind of feel that there's like just like a little bit too much of a indulgence on experimentation. Not that I don't want them not to experiment, but that's where I kind of feel that it kind of menders a little bit, but that's just not saying much. You also have tracks here which really take a slightly more socially conscious tone, like I think of tracks like The Numbers, which I've been hearing is a climate change orientated song, and also tracks like what else here? Present Tense, I think could be like a politically orientated song. But a part of also Burn the Witch. Burn the Witch too, I happen to mention. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in my song review of that song, but Burn the Witch is a very conscientious tone lyrically about the refugee crisis going on in Europe right now, and it's very dark commentary on it too, against the xenophobia that has arisen in not just in the United States but also in Europe as well. But anyways, those tracks in particular have a more socially conscious tone to it, which in a way kind of makes A Moon-Shaped Pool lyrically just a tad inconsistent, for my taste at least, and it's kind of odd. But other than that, this entire record is strikingly personal in nature. Like, the more times I've kept hearing this album over and over and over and over again, the more I've kind of realized that this album is a lot less pushy to go on like full throttle rock and roll, and more an album, as I've said before, is more towards introspection. It's more for those moments where you're sitting all alone by yourself, it's nighttime, and you want some music to accompany and some lyrics to accompany your introspection and searching all over your thoughts and in your feelings, kind of thing. So it's more that than as opposed to Pablo Honey or the Bends in this particular instance. But that's for that. In any case, as to what I personally think about this album, like again, I say that I didn't get it at first, but the more I've kept listening, hearing this album over and over again, the more it's warmed up to me. The more I've kind of really warmed up to this album, and and how this album really doesn't. It takes a risk, but it's not a risk that I was personally expecting. Surprise. But it's a good unexpectedness for me. Rating for this album, I have to say like a somewhere between a 3.5 or a 4 out of 5. Like really, this is an album that has slowly but surely been growing on me, and even though I can't necessarily say that this is like my favorite Radiohead album in recent years or even to date, this is an album that has really reignited my interest in Radiohead. And despite not having a song like Body Snatchers or a song like Paranoid Android on this, which really, gets to pump you up to get you into the album, which I'm a little disappointed in with this album. Also, I kind of think that this album's very mellow and very sad approach to this album gets a little bit tedious as this album goes along. But despite that, I've kind of warmed up to it. Again, I'm not loving this album, but it's an album that I've slowly but surely learning to appreciate more as the time goes on, which also is the reason why it took me so long to get to this review, because I kept having to listen to this album over and over and over and over again just to at least get something out of it. And I did. It wasn't as much as I thought, but it's something at least, and it's a very intimate album for Radiohead for the first time in a while, and I can respect that. So yeah, this has been my thoughts on A Moon-Shaped Pool. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Again, sorry about the brightness in the background here, but I wanted to film it from this angle just to be a little more, make things a little different. But anyway, comments, tell me what you think, and that's it. Radiohead, A Moon-Shaped Pool. Mr. Music Fan, see you guys next time. Take care.